Alrighty, good morning and good afternoon, wherever you're going to be watching this. I hope everyone's having a good morning. We're in store for a great chat, great interview this morning because we're joined by the one and only Mr. Keith Larson. He was a CCN and Task Force 1AE vet when they went to the Black Ball Caps later in the era of SOG. And he served with RT Indigo with Mr. Kevin Smith and with Mr. Jessie Campbell and Mr. Chuck McDowell. Quite the team. And he's going to be sharing some his personal history and some great stories from when he was on the team running with those gentlemen. So everybody, if y'all get y'all's questions ready as we go along, we'll hit them as we go through, and we're going to go ahead and get the ball started here. So everybody strap in and let's get started here. Mr. Keith, first off, thank you for joining us, sir. It's always a pleasure to get a SOG man who's never spoken before to come on and share with us.
Well, thanks, bud.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First off, everybody kind of likes to know a little bit about you guys. Where were you born and raised?
So born up in northern Minnesota. We're way in the western end of Lake Superior, and then up the lake from there about an hour and 15 minutes from the Canadian border, and a little town called Two Harbors. Grew up pretty big family, 6 kids. Have a twin brother. He liked second grade so much he stayed twice, so we didn't graduate the same year. But grew up here in northern Minnesota. Was a woods rat most of my life. Twin brother and I were born about 3 months early. My mom had fallen down and gone into labor, so I spent the first month and a half of my life in an iron lung with my twin brother.
Oh my goodness! Wow. And like we were speaking offline with when I was talking about speaking with Mr. Tim, those Minnesota winters can get rough on y'all. I mean, you guys are a special breed up there.
But it's nice, you know. We don't Scandinavians don't tolerate that hot weather very good. But I spent most of my life here in northern Minnesota. Like I say, I was a woods rat from my dad, because we had a big family. I didn't realize that. I thought we were just going hunting and stuff and having fun in the woods, but it really supplemented the food source for us, because at that time, big family, and they weren't making a whole lot of money then. But shot my first partridge at 5 years old. My dad had us three older boys. I have a brother, Steve, who was a Marine Corps veteran. Ken was in the 82nd. I was in Special Forces. But at 5 and 6 years old, we spent almost 2 years of our life. My dad made us carry a little 22 single shots with no bolts in them. So for 2 years, we learned how to handle weapons, and it really went a long way. We got a good respect for them, and at 7 years old, we knew how to handle weapons. At 8 years old, my dad would let us take the guns. When he was working after school, we'd go out and he'd give each of us a bullet and said, go out in the woods and shoot some rabbits or partridge. And at that age, we learned our way around the woods, how to move, how to hunt, and it was actually a nice growing up.
That's always enjoying hearing about you guys growing up in the past, and the way it was almost Andy Griffin like. It was a much simpler time. Wasn't all these cell phones and all this craziness going on. Just a boy, his brothers enjoying the outdoors and growing up how you're supposed to grow up. Absolutely amazing.
Was lucky. I spent a lot of time with. I had a grandfather who retired pretty early. He was in World War I in infantry, wounded badly in France. And so when my grandpa, he was a mailman, actually the last horse mailman in the state of Minnesota.
Wow.
He'd been stitched up the back good with the Germans chewed him up pretty good. And I asked Grandpa about the war later, and like he never said much about it, but he had a big crease up his back where he'd been hit with a machine gun and peeled a big chunk of meat off him. And he said, worked out pretty good. He says the mail sack sat right in the crease here. And he never said much about the war. I asked him about it later in life and asked him, what do you remember about it, Grandpa? He said, well, not much to say. He says, only there one day.
And was he with did you say he was with the Army over in WW1?
Yes, infantry and Army. I forget what outfit in the Army, but he was one of the first U.S. ones wounded and stuff, and a very proud veteran. He was.
Absolutely. The Great War, the Big War, as they say. That's and that was leading into some of my next questions. I mean, it sounds like you're quite active. I don't know if you played sports. I'm quite sure you being a country boy, you played some type of sports or did something. But when did the military come across or get on your radar as something that you wanted to do as not just a hobby or like playing with your brothers, but thought about becoming a veteran?
I was 17 years old, and we'd been driving cars since we were about 12. But my mom, she wanted us to test it out in Duluth. She didn't really trust us. And my mom, she was a terrible driver. It was like turning a blind forklift driver loose in a nitroglycerin factory. But she thought she was a good driver. Well, Duluth's got real steep hills, and we were there, and the car we had developed a leak in the master cylinder, and I all of a sudden found myself with no brakes and me driving and my mom screaming in the front seat, and rather than turn into a flaming spectacular in front of a grocery store, I ditched it into a guy's yard and stopped there. And of course, Mom was upset and hollering and screaming. And when I finally told her something had happened and the guy come out and helped us, she kind of berated my newfound driving skills. And 2 days later, I took and walked into the Army recruitment down in Duluth, Minnesota, and told the guy I wanted to join the Army. He took and he come in, and he was nice enough, and said, well, I got to ask. He asked me how old I was. I said, well, I'm 17. And he said, well, you have to take and you have to have someone sign for you. So we can't do that. So I said, all right. Well, I took the paper we worked with, left the door, and went down the hall and entered into the shadowy world of forgery. Signed my mom's name and came back, and he said, I didn't see anyone out there. He said, she's like a ghost. She's all over the place. And, went in on a delayed enlistment program. I graduated, and because I was kind of a young for age in my class, woke up one morning and rubbed the dog on top of the head and went down to the bus depot and said, away we go.
Holy cow. Hey, 17 years old.
Yep.
And what year was this that you are enlisted and getting ready to actually go to boot camp?
69.
69. Wow. So I'm presuming by this point in time, TET's already happened, and that was big in the news. Is Vietnam still pretty much in the forefront of not only the news, but in the public zeitgeist of everybody talking about it?
Yeah, and I had a older brother, Steve. He's only 10 months older than my twin brother and I, but he, most of the Larson family must have an infantry gene somewhere in the gene pool there. Well, he chose to go in the Marine Corps. And, after one of the bloodiest years of the Vietnam War, he enlisted in the Marine Corps. So he was already in the service, and, he wasn't in Vietnam yet. But he'd be on his way shortly. Wow.
And so as we're getting into your history, but you would actually not only, besides your brother being a Marine, you had mentioned that you would also have the twin brother, I think Nick, was, as you mentioned, he would become an 82nd member.
Yes.
Okay. And and I forgot while we were speaking on the phone, did you ever get to cross paths with either one of those while you were in country?
No, my brother Steve was down in Chulai when I was up in Da Nang, and he had just about finished his tour, and I didn't get down to see him. Twin brother Ken, the day I left Fort Bragg for leave for overseas, he got into the 82nd, so we're just kind of missing each other all the way along.
Wow. Wow. So 1969, and where, since you enlisted in Minnesota, where are you being sent for your basic training?
Basic training, went to Fort Bragg, there, then down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for infantry, and down to Fort Benning for jump school.
Now, you mentioned Jackson for infantry. Do you mean AIT training?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And then you mentioned off to Fort Benning for your jump school. Now with we've heard from numerous guys. Some get asked early on or come across guys earlier on. How soon in the pipeline did you come across the first guys wearing the famed Green Beret?
Well, I'd seen a couple of them around jump school time. There were some floating in and out, and the first time I really spoke with any of them was when they came at jump school, when they were starting to give you your orders afterwards, and some little kind of just an ordinary looking E6 showed up after they'd given the 82nd and the 101st, and there was a guy from the 173rd there, and they talked all about their units. And they said, well, we have one more here, and it was some staff sergeant showed up, and he jumped up on from a dead stand. He jumped about 3 foot in the air, landed on a stage, and karate chopped a board in half. And he said, I'm here from Special Forces. We're looking for just a few of you. And right now is the only time you can pick us. After today, if you pass this test, we will pick you to see if you're good enough to be with us. And I said, well, why not?
So so right then and there, do you actually take this test at Benning while you're at jump school?
Yes, we took the test there at Benning and got done, and they said check back in an hour or so, and your name's on the list. And I went into the room, and he gave the rundown of what was going to happen, and said, you've all passed. And he said, PFC Larson, I want you to stay for a second. I thought, well, I got to clean something up. I screw up. What's going on? And he said, I forgot to tell you before you took the test and stuff, you have to be 19 and a half years old.
Oh.
And I said, well, and he says, and you are far from that. I was, just not even 18 and a half. And I said, well, what are we going to do? And he said, well, that's, up to you. You can go to one of these other units and try again in another year or more and whatever. He said, but I'm going to go outside and have a smoke or coffee, whatever it is. And he threw a pencil on the desk, and I thought, well, I can't change my dog tags or anything here, but so where I wrote 1951 for my birthday, I took you that 1 and made it into a 0. And he come back in the room, and he looked at me, and he looked at the paper, and he says, well, you're kind of a little runt, but at least you can do arithmetic. He says, you probably won't never make it past the first week of training anyhow. He says, you'll be on the bus with the rest of the guys. So up to Fort Bragg we went.
Wow. So yet again, you're getting very early instances where you're needing to test your sneak ability and being a little bit of a secret squirrel, shall we say.
Well, yeah, even bordering on a felon.
I was trying to put it kindly, but yes, sir. Yes, sir. So wow. And to tell you the truth, that is really cool that the old school Army way of, I'm going to walk off and, if this thing happened to change itself or I come back and it's miraculously right, you're good to go. I really love hearing the old school ways like that.
Yep.
Okay, so you've passed, you've gotten your age taken care of, which is still absolutely amazing that you're this young. And you were, I'm presuming, straight off to Bragg now for TG.
Yep.
Excellent,
I just
excellent.
started training group there in the early fall of 70.
Wow, fall of 1970, and I imagine I know there's quite a few classes going through, but do you remember any faces that you see on down the road in Vietnam from your class?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few. Actually, I ran into a couple of them in jump school, and we went Leroy Sena. Leroy has a very storied career and stuff, and 3-4 other guys that we'd see along the line. But Leroy being we kind of buddied up from then on all the way through training group and into Vietnam.
And he was a CCN vet as well. I'm blanking if he was with ASP or what team he was with, but yes, sir. Very, very great SOG man. Wow, that's great. What are you, with you being infantry AIT trained and all of that? Had you already put a little bit of thought of what you wanted to be as a Special Forces ODA or A team member, weapons, commo? What were you?
Yeah, wanted to go into weapons. I liked them. They interested me. I was pretty being young and learning how to shoot. We shot real well. I was 11 Charlie actually, so I was a mortarman in infantry AIT.
Wow. Okay.
But so it just made you could do all your infantry stuff and still be a pack horse.
That's great. Okay, so what is there anything excuse me guys, is there anything in your in training that really stands out and that really helped you down the line when you were at CCN that you can remember?
Well, the biggest thing is we were, when you go through training group, you usually have very little extra time, and so every weekend you had some kind of duty. One of the guys in the weapons class, I think his name was Delaney or Doherty or something, I can't remember right now. He was from Florida. He'd been on a detail, and he'd heard the 2 Special Forces soldiers that had in charge of the detail talking about the CCN, CCS, CC Central, and starting on Monday, he was regurgitating this information to us, and the head weapons sergeant walked by us while he was saying that, and he locked right up and says, "What did you say?" He says, "That's something," he said at that time, he said, "That's something we don't talk about." He says, "If you want to get terminated out of this program, you don't even mention that stuff. It's not for common knowledge." He says, "And if you keep it up, I hear about it, I'll have you counting reindeer droppings in Greenland before this is over." So I got a pretty good idea at the time that something was going on that I probably wanted to know about, but no one was really going to tell you.
Wow. We've spoken with a few other guys that were around the 70, maybe 71 time frame, and they had mentioned that not SOG, but Fort Bragg had kind of started instituting a in Bragg training group recon leaders course, to where maybe I heard Eldon Bargewell at one point came back, Moose Gross, Dick Gross, and a few other people came back. Was this up and going, or did you hear about this while you were in training group?
Well, we hadn't heard about it until I decided with my friend Leroy and probably a couple other guys that if we were going to make it to Vietnam, that was the route we'd go. So we actually talked to the head of the weapons, because he had always said, if there's anything you want to know, my phone line's open, come talk to me. So we asked him how we'd get there, and he said, well, I'll get you in contact with a lady up at the Pentagon who fills the slot and stuff, Mrs. A. And he says the biggest thing is, he says, I know you've been trained good, everything else. However, I'm not going to send someone up there who's going to embarrass me. Is there anything in your back history? Because you're going to have to pass a security clearance. That's pretty extensive. He says by the time they're done, they're going to know how many times your family dog farts at night. And I said, well, grew up pretty straight, never had much trouble with police or anything. And I says, the only trouble I got is I got a brother in organized crime. He says, you mean you got a brother in the mafia? I said, no, he's in the Marine Corps, but near as I can figure, I think it's the same thing. And he said, well, that's pretty damn close. And so we got orders come down from Mrs. A. Oh, it had to be in late May, maybe early June of 71. And then we went, there's a picture of her. We went to a 1-0 school, they called it, up at McCall.
Wow, that's very interesting. I was hoping you could also you would be able to illuminate on that. That's very interesting. Camp McCall, the SOG school, so to speak. And did you mention when we were speaking that Mr. Frank Pulley was with you at this point in time?
No, Frank, I think had already gone through. He may have been in one of the very first classes they had. I think we were in the second or third class that went in. Wow. Let's see, who was in class with me? Leroy Cena, Hurley Gilpin, a guy named Carl Blaine from from weapons class, 3 or 4 others. J.D. Bath was actually in it, and I think what they were doing is, for this class, they were gobbling up some of the guys that had come back and were going back into, there's JD, back to Vietnam, and they were picking their brains and having them in the classes because you'd give real timely work, what's going on now, because the CCN and all of the projects had changed a lot in 2-3 years because it was getting, from what we could tell, pretty tough to stay on the ground any amount of time. So we'd get accurate intelligence, but JD was great. In fact, the instructors referred to him most and asked him questions and what we were doing. But he went right through the class with us, never made a peep about it, and he wouldn't let loose on too much of the information, being as though we weren't anywhere yet. But he was, and I was on a team where I trained with him, and it was really a plus for my gaining any information.
Wow, that's and you mentioned besides Mr. J.D. Bath, Mr. Hurley Gilpin, who was with Adder, RT Adder, and I want to say with RT Habu, but there he is with the Uzi at the range. But Mr. J.D. Bath, of course, was on, was it the second or the third?
I think it was. I'm not sure if it was a second or third. Might have been a third. He was on with Jessie Campbell, and I believe maybe Stroheim might have been on that one. And then I think Sammy Hernandez. I don't remember if Sergeant Major Billy was on that one or not.
I think that was the RT Wall one. JD, Billy, Madison, and I think Andre Smith and Mr. Jesse.
Yep.
And I think Andre may have gotten hurt, but yeah, that everybody you just mentioned right then, legends. And strangely enough, most of them would be at CCN. JD Bath did work at Pontoon very early on, though. But
yep.
Wow, I mean, this is what we love, hearing the history like this. This is amazing. And you'd actually pop in or would run into Mr. JD on when you would get into Vietnam. But as we're trekking along here, after your stint at Camp McCall, how long was that course at Camp McCall, just for giggles?
I think it was like a 5 or 6 week class, if I remember right, Bud. And we went through, we had like a week and a half of patrolling with it. And the guys would critique us, and it was, for all practical purposes, a pretty good training cycle, I thought.
That's fantastic. I'd heard from Mr. Howard Sugar and some other guys that did have some, and I think Mr. Frank himself, and he said when he got to 1-0 school, or they said when they ended up going to 1-0 school, that it was the closest thing you could get without breaking any, secrecy clauses and running a 1-0 school in country. And he said it probably helped out a lot of guys. It certainly helped them out. So
yeah, I know it helped me a lot, and it it just made sense the guys gobbling the guys up as soon as they come out of country and before they could get assigned somewhere else to get that timely, accurate knowledge.
Absolutely, and it seems like they probably should have done that with the SOG guys if possible, as much as they could. I'm glad to see at least they were doing it in your time period while the Camp McCall School SOG recon course was going on, because that's outstanding. I was very glad to hear that.
When I got into country, then I never went to 1-0 school in country. We kind of pretty much went to work right away, and Jessie Campbell and Chuck took and kept us busy and kept us actually quite a bit of training when we first got it. And I think JD, me being with him, and he knew Jessie when we got to CCN, he went and told Jessie to pick me for his team. Wow.
So from Camp McCall, I'm assuming that's probably the end. And you did y'all you had already gotten Miss Alexander the orders for CNC. So did you pretty much leave from McCall straight to Cam Bay to Vietnam?
Yeah, home on a quick leave, like 2 weeks or whatever it was, and then ended up getting into Vietnam sometime in early September.
Excellent. Okay. And you mentioned you guys flying in, and do you actually end up running into Mr. JD again when you get into the train at the?
Yeah, actually JD was on the flight over from the States, from Fort Lewis, and then when we got into Cameron, he kind of gathered everybody up and told them, "You stick with me." He says, "I'm going to make a call up to," he knowing the ropes already. Took and called someone up at Nha Trang, and they sent, and I think we flew up in a Caribou up to Nha Trang before the leg units and the other units and tried to start gobbling us up for line outfits.
Wow. And we've heard some horror stories of guys getting attempted, and some sadly getting swept up by leg units and having to go out with them until they could either work their way back to Nha Trang and get back with the CNC. But yeah, wow, I bet that would have been wild getting stuck out there with the 101st or what have you as a attached on Special Forces veteran looking to get into SOG. Woo.
Yep.
So you guys get to Cameron or Nha Trang by Caribou. Did you mention, I think Mr. Bob Braden maybe is sitting on the porch, or what's it like when you guys first get to CCN? Are y'all immediately given the brief, or what?
Yeah, we came into the upper compound late in the day, and of course, dumb as a stump, all of us, or most of us, some of the ones that already had a tour, so knew what was going on. So they gave us the rundown of what to do in the compound, what not to do. He says, if you want to go down, says you're going to all be assigned down to Recon Company. If you want to wander down there, go down and understand, don't be out at night running and doing this. Well, I walked down to, me and Leroy took and put our walking shoes on and wandered down into Recon Company, and I walked down, and it was like walking into a casting call of some B-grade movie where they got a bunch of extras running around and bandaged up and this and that. And there were guys walking around and their heads bandaged and their arms bandaged and on canes, on crutches, and my God, what the hell happened here? And they're sitting on the porch, RT Connecticut, was a fellow from little town, Two Harbors, Minnesota, where I'm from. His name is Bob Brado. And he said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And he said, "This is if you plan on living very long, it's a bad place to be." And I said, "What happened here? Did you get attacked or something?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, everyone's walking around bandaged." He said, "Oh yeah, every time you go out in the field, you come back, someone's leaking all over the place." And so we sat down and got kind of the rundown of what was happening.
Wow. I bet that was nice to get the straight skinny from someone you knew back in the hometown area to really lay it out what you're getting into.
Yeah, it was our first kind of exposure to it, and then the next day we got to go down meet Captain Larry, and there he is, low center of gravity there. And he said, well, you're going this, and I think JD had been down there already, and he said, Larson, you're going with Jessie Campbell. And I said, well, of course I didn't know who Jessie was or anything else, and at that time it was just Jessie and Chuck. There he is on the team. And McDowell, I remember, Chuck, Jessie was real kind of gregarious, real kind of friendly, run that southern accent and never really too excited. And McDowell, there's Chuck and Martha Ray, that's in our hooch. Jim Baldwin, that was after we come back from Ashaw the last time.
Oh.
But we got in there, and Chuck was a little owly. He didn't want another American on the team, and he said, well, that's it. And I said that we got to, well, Larry said, well, he's going on the team. I don't care if you like it or not. And we went out, and we had the best location for the hooch in the whole command. The company street, we were right at the beginning of it, so we'd see the good, the bad, and the ugly come through there every day. So we kind of what was going on. Well, Chuck said he didn't like it because I was a Yankee. Jessie being from Virginia, Chuck being from Louisiana. And he says, you smart enough to drive a Jeep? And I've been in Jeeps a little bit. And he said, well, drive me up to this spot. So I take him up there, and he gets out, and there's 4 or 5 guys there. And he walks over, and he pastes this guy right in the mush. And what the hell? And he thumps him a few more times, and he gets in, brushes himself off, and he jumps in the Jeep. And I said, well, what'd that guy do? He says, he asked one too many questions. He says, any questions? No. I'll fine. I'll drive you anywhere you want to go. And that was my first introduction to Chuck.
Whew, what a introduction. Was Mr. Kevin the 1-0? Kevin Smith, was he the 1-0 this time, or was Mr. Jessie?
No, Kevin had moved over to RT Connecticut.
Ah.
And Jessie and Chuck had taken. Kevin trained some really, really good teams. Kevin had come from CC South, I think, and then come up there. He had Rod A too. Seemed like all the Rod A teams and the 1-0s stuck together. The Rod A were more of a kind of a jovial bunch, pretty happy all the time, where you get like a brew team, and they were a little more sullen. There's Kevin. They're a little kind of owly all the time, I thought. The brew. More all business, where the Rod A, they like to have a little fun. They're smiling and happy. It didn't matter if they're getting shot at, they're still smiling, for God's sakes.
There's definitely some good photos, and I'll see if I can dig them up. I had some ready, but there's definitely some good photos of when Mr. Chuck shaved his head, and the guys have gotten some wigs, and the Indig are wearing wigs. Mr. Chuck's got a wig on, a hippie wig on. It's y'all definitely had some fun times, it looks like.
Well, they had it, I think there was a lot of alcohol involved, because Roger Pope and Chuck would both took and shaved their heads. And it was, you could see it was like a white light bulb out there. And Campbell was madder than hell about him. He said, now they just got more to aim at and stuff, and you got to keep a hat on your head all the time. There's Chuck there, and the other fellow's name is Reyes. He was, I think, the 1-2 with Roger Pope on Mamba.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got lucky. He sent me a lot of y'all's team photos there towards the end, and I've got those and put back in my archive. But when you mentioned the shaving of the head with him and Mr. Pope, this has actually grown back quite a bit. We're talking, guys, when we're talking about when he shaved the head, it was literally a cue ball head. I mean, he shaved it to the skin.
And both he and Roger Pope were kind of big, hefty guys, big chested, muscular as all. They look like a set of wrestlers from WWE or something walking down. They're kind of really characters. But I remember Jesse being madder than hell at Chuck when he did it.
There's a speaking of being characters, there's a great photo of Mr. Pope when he shaved his head, and I think he's just running around in nothing but a loincloth, and someone took a picture and he's got his head shaved and he's in nothing but a pith helmet running around. And I've laughed at that since the day I first saw that photo.
Oh yeah, it was, to say the least, at times a carnival atmosphere.
I like to say Animal House, but with guns and
with explosives.
With a little more deadlier outcomes though. So you get off to a little bit of a not a bad start, but they're definitely laying down the line of letting you know you're the new guy and this is how stuff works. How soon before there's a complete team meeting, you're introduced to everybody and training commences?
We get kind of after the first day, and the first stuff goes on, and Jesse says, well, let's go down, and because they'd been on stand down. So he said, let's go down, we'll meet the team. So we went down to the team hooch down by the beach. We got in, had a Rod A team. And we got in, and of course I didn't understand any of their lingo yet. So we got in, and they were gibbering and jabbering and smiling and touching you and everything. And one come and picked me up and carried me to the other side of the room. And then another one grabbed me and picked me up and carried me back. And another one do it. And there was a bunch of shaking their heads. This is really good. And I says, well, we're going to go and get him loaded up with his gear and stuff, and we'll start some training tomorrow. And I got out and I said, well, that went pretty good. I asked Chuck, that went pretty good. He said, what's with all the picking up and carrying? He says, that's some ritual and stuff they do. He says, no, you dumb shit. He says, they said they like you. He says, you're not real big. You'll be easy to carry when you're wounded.
Oh, gosh. I had a feeling that was coming. It's like they were going to see how heavy you'd be to carry.
Yeah.
Folks are always interested in, especially the initial loadout. I'm sure as time will go on, you may have made some alterations, but what is that initial gear handout for a new recon man?
We got up and got issued a weapon and, of course, a stable rig, all the canteen covers, everything. When Jesse went up, and he went with me and up to supply there. And he already had a list of what he wanted, because everyone carried their stuff in the same spot on the team. He had 2 canteens for water, 4 canteens for magazines, another canteen for grenades, and then we would have Jesse had us. We had AK vests that we'd put more 30 rounders in, and then mountain yard rucksack, that stuff, and then as we'd go and get because of the stable rig, me being a little shorter guy, we wanted the straps shortened a little bit, so we got those measured up and stuff. We went down actually over to the air base over in Da Nang, and there was a shop, or like a rigger shop there, and they did the sewing on it for us to get them a little more comfortable, because if your straps were too loose on your stable rig, they'd want to take, and you'd want to kind of sag out of them, so they took and got all that stuff. Sewed some extra pouches on the back of the mountain yard rucksacks. I carried a claymore right on the very top of it. It had easy access to it, but Jesse was a stickler with that. That everybody had their stuff, everybody in the same spot. The only thing doing, Jesse liked the 1-0 vests.
Mm-hmm.
And he chose to use one of them, where neither Chuck nor I don't think, had those.
Wow. And everybody's always curious, especially in later years. You're getting the CAR 15, and did you draw a personal sidearm, or did you prefer to carry more ammunition for your primary weapon?
So I carried, I had a M2 carbine, a cut-off one that I'd got from up at the weapons room. Jessie told me to take that, and I'd carry like 3 magazines for that in a little pouch that slung across the back. It had been chopped down, so it wasn't big and bulky, but the rest of it, there was 2 different CAR 15s. There was one with like a 15 or 16 inch barrel, and another one with a little longer barrel. And I chose the one. I was used to fitting a shotgun to me, and I knew how when a gun just feels good, and the shorter one felt good for me, so that's the one I took.
Excellent. Did at this point in time, I've always been curious because we see the guys in the photos with the 203s under the barrel, the grenade launchers. Was that something the weapons were already coming with, or would y'all decide to get one and put it on the weapon yourself?
They had they were around, and some of the guys carry them. As I remember, Jessie didn't, and I don't think Chuck did either. We had our grenadier, one of our Bunya, our Rod A, he had one, and he carried that. We carried some extra rounds for him. Okay. The other yards did and stuff, and then grenades. Grenades and mountain yards don't match up really. It's like a 3rd grade left-handed girl trying to throw a rock that's too heavy. If you wanted to get wounded, you just go up towards the range with the mountain yards and some hand grenades. You're gonna come back leaking all over the place.
Well, and you are definitely not the first one to tell us about this, but I think you've got a very unique aspect on how you thought you had a way of getting them a little bit better. And I think you said it did improve, but also to help them on off time, y'all have something to do. Would you tell them a little bit about the gift that your mom sent that you used to help not only play with the guys, but also maybe teach them to throw grenades a little better?
Yeah, I noticed that they couldn't throw it. Like it was just an awkward movement for the mountain yards, whereas Americans grow up from 3 years old on throwing something. Where the mountain yards, it was underhand, it was sidearm, it was some other darn thing. So I had my mom send me 4 or 5 baseball gloves, and all the baseballs you could find, she shipped them in a box. And we would start playing, and the Rod A, they loved it. If they were very competitive with each other, and they what we'd do is try to make them, and for doing good, they'd get a little gift, and they just absolutely loved it. But we started going off, and I had coffee cans and little rocks, and teaching them the throwing motion, just going at it, where they do it at 5-6 feet, trying to throw a little rock. And then when they do it, then I didn't smoke or anything, but I'd always bought cigarettes, and I'd give them to them. If they got a rock in, then they'd get a cigarette, and they were happier in hell and stuff. And then as we progressed, we started with larger rocks, and then 55-gallon barrels and baseballs, and playing catch during the day, like an American kid would. And 3 of the mountain yards got real good at it. But it took a week and a half of every day that constant throwing stuff to get used to where I was comfortable being around and letting them throw hand grenades.
Wow. I mean, that's such an ingenious method. We've kind of heard guys talking about either at least trying to get a football or even throwing or skipping rocks doing it. But the baseball method, I thought that was really cool and ingenious, because not only you'd have at least since you're young enough and still probably enjoyed playing baseball, being able to play catch with somebody, but getting your Montagnards to be able to throw a grenade without injuring everybody is amazingly thinking outside the box.
Yeah, it just made sense to me, and I think that's part of the Special Forces way of thinking.
Absolutely, it's those little things, training foreign fighters, or even later on training the trainers. It's in y'all. That's what y'all do.
Yep.
So how long with your training going on and all of that until shall we say orders start to come up for y'all's first mission or training mission or whatever the first go out for Indigo is?
I'd only been there about 3-4 days, and like I said, I think Indigo was on stand down when I got there, and they were slotted next for going up to Fubai for bright light duty. So Jesse said, Keith doesn't have to go to any kind of 1-0 school or something. We'll take him up to Fubai, and we got up to Fubai, and one of the teams was in trouble. We, get ready to go, don't get ready to go, this and that, and we launched. And this is probably the first week that I'm there, and we launched, and we're heading out towards the Ashaw. And I think it was Indian Adams and Pee Wee Reese. I think their team was in trouble. And I remember, of course, nervous as all get out, and I asked Campbell, well, what do we bring? He said, we don't bring anything but bullets, bandages, and water. He says, if we need food, we'll take it from the North Vietnamese. I thought, oh boy. So we were going out, and I'm in second or third slick going out, and I look ahead of me, and something comes off the helicopter ahead of me, and I hit the door gunner. I said, something just flew off that slick ahead of us, and we were on the intercom on the headsets, and he said, typical roto head, did it look important? Yeah. I said, well, I don't know, it came off it, and he says, it's not smoking or anything, it'll be fine. So then we ended up going in, never inserted on that, so we just got a helicopter ride in and out of it, and so we spent another two weeks or more, or 10 days up at Fubai, and we never launched. No one ever needed us. That one of the Montagnards, we had some training and stuff, and he hurt his foot, his ankle, and then when we got back, we went and brought him back to Bamituit and picked up another recruit down there.
And we had mentioned that and I had mentioned how I found it so interesting that so many of the CCN yards, a lot of their home tribe was way back down south in Bamituit, and how y'all would go back for funerals or check-ins or recruiting drives to get more men for the recon teams.
Yep, and it's, I don't know why it happened like that, but a lot of the teams preferred the RT, and a lot of them liked just the brew. And of course, both the RT and the brew, they didn't get along real good with each other. I mean, they tolerated each other, but it's like anything else, cousins, sooner or later you get in a spat about something. So most of the guys that we hung around with around the compound were other RT teams, where most of the brew teams kind of hung around with most of the other brew teams, just the way it worked down there.
That's another little interesting tidbit that Nick Brockhausen kind of mentioned it in his book, but it doesn't really get spoken about that much. And I'm glad you kind of put it that way, that teams almost had, for lack of a better term, sister and brother teams that they would hang out and be associated with more so than other teams. And now finding out it's probably because the ethnic makeup of their teams gelling more so together than another team.
Exactly. They because you know there weren't that many guys. There was probably maybe 15, 20 teams there at CCN, but towards the end, at least when I was there, there was only like six, 7 teams that got the biggest part of the workload. The other teams, for what other reason, either they were hurt or still in training or something else, something, you know, maybe they were up on bright light duty or up at on top of Monkey Mountain or something. But 6 to 8 teams ran a big part of the. You know, you had Eldon's team, of course, 2 or 3 Gordon Sparlings. Senton, Jessie, Roger Pope, Jim Baldwin. They were always busy. The team he was on, and then yeah, there's Gordon.
Great ERDL.
Gordon, good 1-0.
Heard he was excellent, and I hate to disrupt this, but people have been bothering, and it always comes up. And it seems CCN, especially towards the end, a lot of uniform testing out was going on. The ERDL configuration, I've seen Mark Pollock, Fish Smith, I believe, with Eldon and Gordon, all wearing ERDL a lot. Was that common, or was it always just ODs, or would guy mix and match and test stuff out?
It just depended on what the 1-0 liked. Like these ones that Gordon liked, and we did the same thing. We sewed our pockets on. Actually, sometimes we had 2 pockets on an arm above the elbow, though, so they wouldn't be flopping around too much. And extra pockets to put some. They were a little more sturdy. They take a lot more punishment, where a lot of our regular jungle fatigues, our ODs, would rip up and tear up real good.
Wow, that's interesting to know. Kind of like how the Tiger Stripes weren't all that durable in the long run. Yeah,
the Tiger Stripe, they look good when you're running over to the someplace else, but you put them on and go to the field, you may as well just shred them. They didn't have much for good material in them, where the other utilities, like the ones that Gordon had on there, were really durable. Seemed like they were like almost double kneed and stuff, were in the legs, and then the only trouble being is they were a little warmer.
Ooh, I think. I could see how that material and the camo pattern would probably retain a lot more heat.
There's Eldon.
I like his, and I also noticed you guys also would do zippers as opposed to the button pockets as well on the shoulders.
Yeah, we did some zippers, but they didn't seem like they lasted real well. We went a little later. I started with zippers on mine first, and then I went to buttons, because the zippers always seemed like they broke.
I could see, and especially if you're in the wet and you've got a little bit of dirt on you, I could see that zipper very quickly getting eaten up in the fabric, and it just getting locked, and you basically having to rip that thing open like that. I could see why the buttons were more preferred.
Yeah, and it was nice because the way we had them configured is Jessie had them and Chuck did the same thing later. That everything that all of us Americans had, and for the matter most of the mountaineers, everything was in the same spot where you didn't have to guess where something was. If someone was wounded or something, you knew you could get their bandage on the left side top pocket. That's where your bandage was going to be.
And that's one thing learning on very early on, like this photo of Mr. Bob, that, I mean, you can look, and him and Mr. Johnny are almost spitting images, except for a few differences of, like you said, how their gear is set up to where, like you said, if y'all are down in the dirt, nobody can get their head up above, shoulders length, and you literally have to just start reaching over and grabbing for stuff. Guys know, even Indig know exactly where everything's at that can save precious moments and your life potentially. And those,
exactly. John Ely was a great recon guy.
Oh,
Also,
he's
not surprising with Bob there.
Yeah, his it seems like there's almost like pairs when Brockhausen gets mentioned, McLaughlin or Cook is around, and it seems like anytime you mentioned Bob, Johnny was around. It seems like from talking to the guys that they were right there with each other all the time.
Oh, it's they're definitely built a chemistry. The first time I saw Nick and Little Mac and their little gorilla Cook, we were sitting on our hooch, and as I mentioned, we were right on the company street, and they were coming up. They must have been. They loved to run those for some reason or other. They were almost always on those Quang Tree targets. I think they must have owed Boudreaux money or something because they had to go back up there. But I see him coming up there, and of course I didn't know anybody. It was early, and we were sitting by our hooch, and I see him coming up the street, and they got so much man jewelry on and stuff, and they're just loaded to the nuts. And I see him coming up, and I asked Jesse. I said, "Who are those guys?" And he says, "Just never mind." He says, "You'll meet them soon enough." And they come by and they say, "Yeah, good luck, this and that." And I said, "Where are they going?" He says, "Hanoi, if they'd let them." And they headed up to. I got to meet Mr. Nick. He's a Minnesota kid too, so.
Oh yes.
We took and would meet Nick and Little Mac and Cookie later. They became good friends there.
Oh yes, yes, sir. I've got a line of commo that I'm going to be trying here soon to see if I can get in touch with Mini Mac. But according to Mr. Nick, he's not one to talk very often, especially if you're not a fellow SOG vet. So fingers crossed, I might can get through to him. But
yeah, he goes hermit every once in a while, and no one can get a hold of him.
Yeah, he's down here in Alabama, so I'm hoping maybe fellow Alabamian can break through. But
well, you got a couple down there. You got Scott Case, and it's funny because it seemed like we'd get little groups. There was a little group from Minnesota kids, a little group of like Alabama kids and stuff, and they, most of them were all darn woods rats, and they for whatever reason showed up where we were.
That's the little cliques and groups inside. It's why I keep saying it's literally like Animal House with explosions. I mean, it's just how, and I'm partially glad because Hollywood will find a way to ruin that good thing. But I just find it crazy that Hollywood hadn't come knocking on y'all's doors. I've heard rumors, but I'm just surprised it hadn't happened before now.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question about gear as we kind of start getting into some interesting stuff that happens in Christmas and some other things. But folks are always interested about SOGs using AK vests and the abundancy of 30-round magazines in this time period. Were y'all fully stocked? Didn't have to worry about going short on 30-round mags at this time?
Yeah, at that time, 30-round magazines were very common, and they were good magazines. I guess they had some trouble with the first ones they had, but we never had any trouble getting them. We always tried to pick them up and not leave them if at all possible. But at times, when things got crazy, you just didn't. But the 30-rounders fit good up in the AK vests, and then on your loadout on your web gear, I typically carried the 30-rounders in the center with 220s on each side of it, and because the canteen covers would take and snap real good, it'd hold everything tight, nothing rattled, and if you put a little piece of tape on the bottoms of the 30-rounders there, you could pull them out real easily.
I've seen that the little tape or the was it 550 cord that you'd make a little loop out of that you could pull out.
Yeah.
That's ingenious. So by that time, not only they're abundant, but they're good to go. There's no deficiencies like those first groupings were.
No, they're real good, and it's easy to get at and plenty accessible. And they fit real nice in the AK vests, and it give you both something. It help you. You could lay down a little flatter if you didn't want those canteen covers right in next to your legs, because you couldn't lay down quite as flat.
Mm-hmm.
And when inches kind of count, it's kind of nice to get a little lower.
It's almost like you'd be doing a partial worm where your belly's kept up from the canteen covers right there.
Exactly. And it was more comfortable walking and stuff.
Yeah, those the whoever decided to start it or try it, the AK vest for the Car 15 30 rounders was just absolutely ingenious.
Yeah.
We heard with the 18s that guys, you wanted, or the 20s, 20 round mags, putting 18 to save the spring. Were y'all doing that with the 30s as well, or were guys smacking them full of 30 rounds?
No, I think the 30s we kept full. In the 20s, we still ran them at 18. Some of the guys that had trouble with the springs, I think, on the magazines, I myself never did. And I typically, with the first 2 rounds you put in would be tracer. So when you got to the end of a magazine, you hit those last 2, and you knew you were if you hadn't been counting or able to count, you were changing.
Wow. I always I find that interesting, and always enjoyed hearing guys do that, because it seems like such a smart idea. I know it might give away your position, but like you said, if you're not counting and need to know that last one, and when you see a tracer, by God, I need to start changing magazines or getting ready to.
Yeah, that was the only downfall of it. It actually kind of, it's like seeing a vapor trail off a B40. You know where it's coming from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I know that can be bad. Okay, so we've kind of covered your first engine atom / Coy Reese attempted or almost bright light. What could you talk to us, because I know the Christmas Eve one is going to be a big one that we'll probably close out on, but y'all actually had a foray into, I'm not sure if it was the Ashaw Valley as well, but y'all actually you captured a NVA belt on an operation in October or November, didn't you?
Yeah, we grabbed some off some guys. I was with Gordon I was strap hanging at the time. When I first met Gordon Sparling there, he was, we were walking back from the upper compound or something, and he was laying underneath a Jeep, and I could hear someone swearing. Gordon loved those Jeeps and monkeyed with them, and he was swearing, cussing up a storm, and I went by and I said, I bet you're trying to get that top bolt on that bell housing, aren't you? And he come crawling out of there, and he says, how do you know about them? And I said, well, I've been changing clutches on those Jeeps with my dad since I was 15. And he said, well, you're just the guy I need to talk to then. And so we got there, and I straightened out how we did it, and we became pretty good friends after that. And he'd come and he'd ask Jessie, we must have been on stand down or something. I was never one to take and go to the club a whole lot or anything, other than to listen to some of the 1-0s of what was going on. And Gordon asked if I wanted to go on a strap hang on his team. Of course, I went to Jessie and asked. Oh, yeah. And I says, we got anything going on, Gordon? He asked, whose team? And he says, Gordon's. He said, okay, you can go with him. And because there were some of the other 1-0s who would ask. He says, no, I don't want you on that team.
He liked to look out for you.
He did.
Yes.
And so I went with Gordon, and we picked some stuff up that we got in a little trouble there, and there were some people, and I grabbed a belt off one guy just before we came out of we rode strings on that time. Only time I was on strings.
That was the only time you ever came out on strings.
Yep. The rest of the time, I kind of like ladders. both short or long ladder. They were easy to get on. They were more comfortable than the strings.
I see Mr. Bob Superman Sinton. He at least from photos I've seen, he utilized the ladders quite a bit as well.
Yeah, it's and whatever was working better for the slick pilots and stuff. Simple fact is, not a single one of us recon guys would be alive without what those helicopter people did. They were just fantastic. You could hear that Huey rotor slap. I used to think it was the blade going around. Really, it was just their balls knocking together. Because I tell you, they were just great people.
Yeah, those gentlemen needed wheelbarrows waiting at the helipad for when they got out of the aircraft.
Yeah, their testicles were attached directly to their spines.
And we were speaking to a veteran the other day from, it may have been Bammy Tui, who had talked about that the King Bees had taken over and Vietnamization was taking over. Was CCN still all American slicks at this point in time? No King Bee work going on?
When I was there, we didn't have any of the King Bees. It was all Charlie and Delta Hueys. That at one time the 20th came up and they had the turbine ones, and they were good because you could lift a little more. You get up and towards the west side of the Ashaw where the air was thinner and stuff. They could take a little bit bigger load.
That's the 20th SOS Green Hornets guys that yes. We spoke to a day or so ago. So you've heard that Mr. Keith even had worked with them a little bit. And quite a great group of men they are as well.
They took in and the 101st did most of our flying. The Comancheros,
the Lancers,
and the Lancers are Kingsmen or something, and then the guns and stuff. The ARA were the Black Widows.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's one thing. Like you said, all of the CNCs. Their helicopter support units, the men absolutely deserve all of the praise y'all are getting, and more so because those helicopter pilots, both the inserting, extracting, the gunship guys, just out of this world. There, like you said, there'd be a lot more recon men still in Laos and Cambodia without the work of those brave souls behind those sticks and guns.
Exactly.
Jeez Louise, I just get goosebumps even thinking about the LZs y'all go in. Speaking of hot LZs, I think you actually had mentioned one time also, which I'm going to get you to talk about because this is a big time frame shift of what's going on tactic wise. But didn't Mr. Bob actually rappel into a target one time?
Yeah, I think he and Ron Turney was on the team. And I think they were able to stay on the ground for quite a while. Yeah, Bob was one to experiment with stuff and really meticulous, really a good 1-0. And he had a Rod A team also. And he would, you didn't worry when you went with Bob Sinton.
Wow.
And he would have, he worked with some other good guys, Ron Turney, Mike Lawson.
I heard a lot about
Leroy Cena a little bit later, but Bob was a classy guy.
I was going through because hopefully I'll be able to get up with Mr. Bob and Chuck thanks to you. But I was going through Mr. Bob's RT Florida when he had left ASP, and my Lord, the length of time and the men that served under him. You mentioned a lot of them. Billy William Crimple was another one that was on there. Just outstanding. That RT Florida at CCN was just an outstanding team. Just outstanding.
Yeah, they were.
And before we get into your most epic and crazy mission and we do some questions, could you tell us what we were kind of speaking about on the phone, how it had changed so much from the guys early in the war, 68, even up to 69, to where guys were able to get on the ground, run recon, stay maybe even up to 4 or 5 days to where now you guys are literally fighting to get on the ground and fighting to get back off of the ground.
Yeah, sometimes when you'd come in on insert, the helicopter would be taking AA fire and stuff, and once you were on the ground, if you were lucky enough to get in, for a long time, I know they did like afternoon extractions and stuff. We typically tried to do ones earlier in the day, so when trouble did arrive, we had a little more daylight and stuff. But it was later. It was just get on the ground and try to hide, and once they found you, it was just a run and gun fight. If you're lucky enough to have a good cubby, and we had some absolutely great cubby riders, they'd take and make stuff a little bit easier for you.
Oh, and we'll be talking about the one and only Don Smurf Murphy here in a bit, but would you chalk this up to you maybe from you learning, talking to guys that maybe had been there a previous tour earlier on? Is this to not only the leak in Saigon giving a lot of stuff away, but had they just picked up on all of the usable LZs that you guys had and could work with?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. They had the leak down south, and sometimes when we went up to isolation and gave our mission brief and stuff, we would not tell them the exact LZ that we're going to go into. We'd get up to Fubai, and I ran out of Fubai more than any place. Not that it was out that many times, but we ran those ash out targets, and we would depend on our covey rider a lot. He says, no, you don't want that LZ. There's another little one here. We're going to go in there instead. We'll brief the assets on that. And so it says it's different from what you give on your mission brief or so, but we'd rather keep you alive and going and stick right to the letter on something.
And I've found that so crazy that speaking with you gentlemen that were in the later years of the war, that I had spoken with guys late 68 and 69, two famously, Lynn Black of CCN or FOB 1 and 4, and then Dick Thompson saying they were doing in 1969 exactly what you just described, not giving the actual LZ because it was starting to get bad at that point in time.
Exactly.
I mean,
and as long as the asset package was on board with it, and the covey rider, he'd arrange his ball game according to that.
Wow, really running the show up there for y'all.
Yes.
Gosh, it's and isolation is another interesting aspect because as far as I found out, really, you guys up north were the only ones that really practice full-on isolation to where y'all would go to an actual location, whether it be the launch site. I think the actual compound at CCN had one, but y'all would go off and be separated, not shower, the whole Megillah to make sure y'all didn't smell like Americans and the whole thing. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Wow. And I think I was talking to somebody the other day and I didn't realize it, and I've got to talk to them about it, but they actually had entire teams at the launch site running isolation, running the launch and the whole thing. It was almost like it's mini FOB right there at the launch site for y'all.
Yeah, exactly. They'd come and they'd help out. And that's, some of those teams did that so well. And it gave a little extra people around, and we'd take and you were with your own people there. Not that the launch site people changed that much, but you'd get comfortable with it.
Wow, I just always reading and listening, always try and put myself in y'all's shoes. And at this point in time, hearing about y'all running and gunning just to get on the ground and all that, it's just crazy trying to even put myself in your shoes thought wise. It's just, and guys, when you hear this upcoming story, it's going to even blow your mind more so. But before we close out and get to the last part of the questions, would you be open to sharing your Christmas Eve event of 1971 with us?
Yeah, Christmas Eve, that was kind of the highlight of it. It was really a crazy day. We'd been tasked with target and stuff, picked it, and it was kind of right where Route 922 comes out of Chaponne, off of the Oscar targets, goes into the valley, and I can't remember the number of the road that went down through the middle of the valley, 546 or 548 or something like that. But we picked a hillside there. Actually, I flew the VR for that with a Air Force Lieutenant Hutchinson, and we'd got in there. We're going to take, and this was about 2-3 days ahead of when we were going up to Fubai, and we got a look, and it was kind of spotty clouds and stuff, so he was in and out of stuff, and we're looking, and I said, well, I'd like to see, kind of where, because Jessie had picked a couple different hilltops that he thought would be okay. Yeah. So we got in, and I told him, well, let's go down and kind of take a little better look if we can. He gave me kind of a side glance, and he said, you really want to go down there? And I said, well, I'd like to look. Well, we break down out of the clouds in that 02, and the whole world lit up on us. And I looked in, down on the road, there were people scurrying all over the place, and we come out of there, and he was drinking and going this way and going that way, and we're getting some fire and stuff at us, and he turned to me and says, do you want to go again? And I said, no, I'm just fine. He said, she saw all I wanted to see. And we got in, and he said, take a look out the window. He says, we still got a wheel down there, and to see if I said, yeah, we're good. We got rubber on it at least. He says, okay. He says, I don't like to go in there like that, because he says that's a bad neighborhood. So we got tasked then to go up to Fubai, and we're going to do a static. Jessie, Chuck, and I, and we took 6 mountain yards up. I can't remember if we took all of them into the target or not, but we took 6 of us. So there's 9 total. Tried to launch like on the 23rd and couldn't, weather. And on Christmas Eve, we were, hurry up, get ready, don't get ready. And Murph called. He was already up over the target, and he says, you got a weather window coming in here. We're going to have good weather. He says, let's try to get you in here. So away we go. There's Sluggo. He quite a guy there. He's he says, oldest E6 in the United States Army, all 3 times. But we got launched, and Jessie and two of them, Jessie and the 01, and one of the mountain yards, 2 mountain yards are going in first. Chuck and 2 more next. Then me and I think I had 2 with me, if I can't remember, but. They'd run bombs in on top of this hill where we could still see, 3 or 4 roads, real good. And we got in there, and there'd evidently been some North Vietnamese there that the bombs had taken care of. Inserted, and we're taking some ground fire. I remember jumping out and hitting the ground, and Jessie pointed me down to the east. Chuck, he was busy on the other end. He had a little scrap going on there, and so we were trying to get everything kind of in order. The slicks got off okay, and they were taking a bunch of fire from down slope from us. There's a 51 down there just hammering at them. I said, oh God, here we go. So, and I remember crawling over to the east side, and I peeked my head up over the lip of the bomb crater and looked down there, and absolutely everywhere you could look down in the valley there were people. I mean, everywhere. And they weren't running away from us, they were running towards us. And I remember I said, oh shit, I hope we brought enough ammunition. And so we got busy. We'd taken 2 radios in. We'd gone in heavy. We'd taken extra claymores and stuff. We had 2 radios, so in case one got inoperable, we go on. So and we got busy there and took care of some targets. Had some A1s on station right away, and they did that in the ARA. The guns went all the way around us. One, I remember, hovering right on top of us and running his nose gun out and keeping people down. So we got good and busy, and Chuck was busy over there, and Jessie was on the radio talking to Covey, and I had the other radio up, and I was picking out some targets down in the valley that I saw. And Murph had he had loads of air cover lined up, and we started running mostly fast movers, and because the A1s, the flying dump trucks, they were off to the east or west. They're hiding somewhere. And so we got those going, and like I say, we're plenty busy for an hour and a half. I mean, it was just we're getting a little bit of ground fire and stuff, small arm stuff on us, and I was more worried. I thought the hills across from us, I thought we might start to get some direct anti-aircraft fire, but they evidently couldn't bring their muzzles down far enough to shoot it, and there were people down slope for us. You could hear them down there.
Jeez. And didn't you say that you think that y'all had jumped into was it a regiment or a company, you think?
Well, I don't know. It was more in a company because there were a lot of people around. I bet you it was at least a battalion. Typically, how the battalions moved down, they moved down in they'd have different companies, and as they'd get to their RON, where it was, they'd separate by 100, 200 meters, and each would go one way, so they weren't all ganged up in one spot. So we got into the middle of a mess of them, and I remember telling the Mountaineers right away, it's a single shots only. He said, no automatics unless we need them. And they were pretty good because they could tend to get, when things get a little sketchy, they use up the ammunition pretty fast. So we sat there, and like I said, things kind of calmed down. We even had some carrier-based fast movers in there, and we were sitting there trying to get comfortable, making fighting positions a little bit better, and I hear Mac, and he says, well, you look at this. And Chuck says, look down on the road down in the valley there, and out starts walking people, and they're 400 meters from us maybe, and Campbell says, keep a count on them, and we caught them, and they were walking around like it's a May Day parade in downtown Hanoi, just marching down. And then after the first big group of them come by, Chuck says, look at this, and he says, we put the binoculars on them, and right in the middle there's like 6 guys in gray fatigues, gray utilities, and they are a head and a half taller than all of the North Vietnamese. So Chuck took and had his camera out, and he put his binoculars up using that as a telephoto lens, and he set it to 0, and then he put it on a lens, and he started taking pictures of these guys. And then Murphy, he's up in his little motorized sports car up above us, and he says, I'm just laying over here to the west. He says, I want you to tell me when your count gets to where it is, and where the south is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2 sets of assets, and one to hit the south and one to hit the north. And then he says, I got them lined up. We're going to take and just bomb the whole shitload of them. After we got more than 100 people counted, Jessie called a prairie fire. And he said, we got more than 100 people in the open, And Murph says, if your head's down, we're gonna put the hurt on them. And they bombed the south end of them first, and then on the north end, and then they had probably 4 or 5 flights of fast movers come in and just rake that whole road system, and secondary explosions and people all over. And we started getting quite a bit of ground fire in by us in on the hill. And they bombed and stuff. We ran some A1s on stuff. There was 2 spots, and while we were doing this with the 2 radios, Jesse said for me to set my other radio down. He says start scanning the frequencies and see if you can get any North Vietnamese on there. Well, we took it and got their whatever frequency they're on, and we had the interpreter sit there with me on the radio, and he would say, oh, they're going to come over here. They're coming down on the west side of the hill where we are. And so we'd order an airstrike on there, and every time they'd move, we'd bomb the shit out of them. And we were starting to really piss them off. And then, so now we're going to take and go. What do I got here? I got something going on that. There is a cooling system. Oh, I lost you, bud. I'm back. Oh. I'm back. Well, we got all that done, and like I said, it was getting busy. Some of the guys that had a little bit of shrapnel and stuff in them, and it wasn't too bad. Well, it got quiet, and then Chuck hollered, and he said, "There's a fucking tank." And I looked down there, and out of this one Y in the road comes a tank. I said, "Oh shit!" My asshole slammed shut so fast. I said, "This is not going to be good." And the tank went down the road probably 50 meters, did a 360, and then ran back to where it came. And Jesse hollered, "You keep your eye on that." And got there, and Jesse's looking at the SOI, trying to find the word for tank and this and that, and I'm worried. I'm doing. It looks like a light personnel tank, so I'm doing. Well, it's got a 77 millimeter gun. I'm doing the math. I said that's about a 3.5-inch shell. This is not going to be good. Here's we're trying to get some real estate between that muzzle and me. Well, we took and got it, and I finally couldn't wait for Jesse any longer, and I got on got Murph. I said, Murph, I didn't even use the call sign. I said, Murph, we got a tank down here, and dead quiet on the radio. He says, authenticate, and I said, Tango Alpha November Kilo. He said, where is it? And told him, and that, and all of a sudden someone comes on the radio. Who we don't, no one knows who this is, and he called our call sign, whatever it was, and he says, use proper radio procedure. The enemy is going to be able to locate your position. And I got on the phone. I said, I don't know who the hell this is, but he says that happened a long time ago. Every NVA from the Mugai Pass to goddamn Da Nang is already here. And he says, stay off this goddamn net so we can kill some of them. And then Murphy says, whoever's on this channel, get off it. It's a working channel. And so
wow.
We started working. They ran some fast movers in, and the second bomb that hit, there was a big belch of smoke and secondary explosions there, and I suspect that's when they hit the tank.
Yes.
It was Murphy. At this time, he's almost out of gas, and he said, "I hate to tell you this, guys, but I'm going to take and run the top off, get some more fuel and some more help. You're on your own." And he says, you got a bunch of people down to the west of you, there's a bunch of people down to the east. I'm going to run bombs on them. You can, at that point, we could talk to the A1s, but of course we couldn't talk to the fast movers. And we kept them there. And Murph asked then the first time, he says, do you guys want to get extracted? And because Da Nang had called and said they want you to go on the floor of the valley and get some pieces of that tank. I said, what? And I was afraid Jesse's going to do it. And I remember the 01, they got in a little huddle there, and Chuck was sitting there shaking his head, no, we're not going to do this. And the 01 said to Jesse, and he spoke good English, he says, if you want to go down to the floor of the valley, we will go down with you. But if we go down there, we will all die. And well, that's all I needed to hear. I said, I wanted to leave a long time ago. And so Murph says, I got on the phone, says, there's going to be no soirees down into the valley. He says, you guys are defensible where you are. I'm going to go get fuel, and then we're going to figure out a plan here. So off they went, and we stayed busy then for an hour and a half, maybe, getting some, they tried getting on us a couple times, and we used the air and got them off of us, and it was starting to get a little sketchy there, and I called up Murph on the radio, and gave him a call sign. He says, things are starting to not look good here, what's going on? And he says, I'm on the way. And he says, I want you guys to buckle get your stable straps all buckled up, and he says, we're gonna pull you guys out of there. And he says, trouble is, he says, there's 3 trees down to the east. I plan on running stuff right up the gut there. He says, those have to come down. I thought, oh shit. They had 3 trees down 50 meters or so down in front of us, big tall ones that hadn't come down with the bombings. And McDowell looked at Jesse looked at McDowell, they both looked at me, and they said, it's one of those things with the guys on the cereal commercial, let's have Mikey do it, and they said, go, you start earning your money. He says, you're causing all the trouble over there, so let's go. So I crawled out and ran down the 3 trees there, and we had rigged up a ring main so I could take and blow all the trees at once. We didn't want to use the claymores in case we had to stay overnight, and because if we would have stayed overnight, we'd have never lived. Chuck says, they ain't never going to let us live if we stay here. So Murph says, well, make it good, because we only got one try at this, and if you're on the taxi, that's fine. If you're not, you're on your own. So I went around there and took and jumped around. There was a couple North Vietnamese, 3 of them there, and we took care of them and started rigging the trees up. And I had little shorter fuses on the ring main, so I pulled them and ran back, and about halfway back, and the trees went. And then Murph says, I'm a couple of mics out. Get ready, here we go. And so we took, and he says, I'm going to run bombs in right on top of you. He says, and while it's still, while the commotion is still going on, he says, you're going to have ladders come in. He says, you guys get on those things. He says, we don't have time to turn around. He says, can't put those helicopters in that position. I was worried about that 51 that was down slope for us, because we tried to get it with hand grenades when Chuck had given me first hand grenade I threw at it earlier, and it hit a tree and bounced back at us and exploded 20, 30 feet from us, and he crawled over and he said, the object of this is for the grenades is for you to kill the North Vietnamese, not us. And then he gave that scowl that he was good at. But they came and we ran the bombs on them, and I went out on the first slick. Frank Mariano was on the first. He was flying belly on the first slick, and I can remember looking up at him. I was taking, and I had a Montagnard on each side of me, and I was getting them because I had them. They had snap hooks, so I wanted them to snap in on the ladders so they could, not fall off. So I got them. I can remember Frank hollering, "Hurry up," because the slick had probably been hovering there for 8-9 seconds already. And we jumped on, and all three slicks picked up everybody. I looked back and saw Jessie had thrown the red smoke grenade as we left out of the valley, and then they just came and Murph had them just bomb the ever living shit out of it after we left. So that was Christmas Eve of '70. We spent about 4 hours on the hill.
Jeez, I mean, as if jumping into battalion size element isn't enough. I mean, y'all have got 51 up there messing with y'all, and then the tank showing its face. I mean, that's a Christmas Eve of '71 that I don't think anybody else could top.
Yeah, and it turns out Jessie wasn't even supposed to be. He was supposed to already de-rose, but he said he wanted one more go at the North Vietnamese. So we took and got back, and the chase medics patched, fixed the little leaky holes on us. And I remember Murph came in. We turned in all of our film and stuff, and he was getting that. He said, "We can get this developed down to Saigon right away," and got that. Murph came in and says, "You guys need any help with the after action report?" And that. And I thanked him. He says, "Thanks for coming to get us." He says, we weren't going to last the night there. They wouldn't let us live, I'm sure. And I said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And of course, Murphy, being as smooth as he is, he wanted me to be an active part in every sexual fantasy he'd ever had since he was 14 years old. And I said, "Well, why don't you just bring me back to the North Vietnamese instead? I'll take my chances with them." And he said, "No, I got one better." He says, "Why don't you when I die, come and bury me?" And I sat there, we're sitting there drinking Schlitz beer, getting little bits of shrapnel pulled out of us, and we clicked our cans together, and I said, "I'll do that." And Frank said, "That sounds good to me." And so that was Christmas Eve. Later in life here, I was able to keep that promise for both Frank and Murph. And when we buried him, I got down there. It's a little bit of that brotherhood that not many people can understand. But it's definitely a highlight of my life.
Wow, that takes the cake. I've read some wild SOG stories, but that one right there is one for the books. And not to mention, you've got one of the best cubby riders to ever ride. Got your back, and I mean, I think there maybe before he ends up leaving to go get gas and refuel, I think he even makes a gun run with his car 15 out of the window.
Yeah, before he was going, he says, "Well, make one more gun run." And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for. I figure we're gonna get an A1 come in, and I'm waiting for a rotary engine to hear that, and I can hear the Cessna, the O2, coming screaming in, and there's Murphy hanging half out the window, and he throws a banana knife out, and it lands by the perimeter. I hear a big flop, and I go, "What the hell was that?" And I looked over there, and he says, "If they get too close, use this." And then he says, "Fix banana knives," and then off he went.
Holy cow!
That little bit of levity in the situation, trying to ease your, as if a banana knife was going to help at that time.
That I can only imagine the sight of seeing that. But yeah, having a little bit of levity in that situation, I'm sure that helped a little bit, and especially knowing he's over top of you. I mean, what a guy! What a guy!
We had we got done with our after action reports and stuff, and got the mountain yards tucked away, and they ran us down to Da Nang the next day there, and we had a hell of a big party. Some of those pictures you showed from that party in our hooch. Martha Ray had showed up, and We had a heck of a good time.
Wow, that I think that might be one of them.
There's Chuck with the team. That's before haircut, before the bald haircut.
And I've got a good photo of when I think you were one of the team that I'm going to show in a minute, because you had some good remarks on some of the teammates. Guys, if y'all have got any questions, please get them in. We're about to start hitting them and be closing out for the day here. But to kind of finish up along with your story before questions, is it how long? Because inevitably you end up becoming the team leader of Indigo. How long before this takes place, and how long is that stint as leading the team?
Yeah, Chuck, Jesse had gone right after Christmas. After a party, he disappeared, and we never knew where he went. We found out he'd back in the States already. He'd getting balled out for staying too long. And then Chuck stayed, and we worked till sometime in maybe February. Chuck left, and then I got the team then.
Wow.
So I got him when that one is at Fubai launch site at I think when we one of the first missions when we got there, when we were doing bright light.
Okay. So this is at the launch site then. I'll need to label that. I'm always trying to get correct location. Boy, look at that red hair when he had it grown out.
Oh yeah, he had a head of hair on him.
That is hilarious. And boy, the SOG man mustache competition that seemed to be going on amongst the CNCs are quite funny, because McDowell could grow a good one too. Not quite like Walt Shoemates with his handlebar, but he had some pretty good ones.
Yeah, I still couldn't grow one much because I didn't hardly have any whiskers yet. I got out, when I left Vietnam, I was still barely 20 and a half years old.
And guys, are y'all hearing this? He was doing this all at 19 and 20 years old. That's another part that just blows my mind. I mean, you can't even drink a beer legally, and here you are running a SOG recon team, or you've been on a SOG recon team and you end up running a SOG recon team.
It was nice because I was the youngster, pretty much all those older guys. They corrupted me.
Oh, I can only imagine what it was like as a young moldable and impressionable mind like yourself ending up with these guys.
There we are. They were getting ready to go. Donnie Kelly was there and took that picture, and we'd got a target where the last two teams had gone in there and got all shot to shit, and Donnie Kelly says, "Here, let me take a picture of you, so you got something to show you. They got something to show your mama." So we're all giving him the finger and stuff.
Oh,
Donnie,
Lord.
he was another one of the good guys.
Oh, absolutely. Mr.
Ran good teams.
Yes, sir. I've had a gentleman, Mr. Hollingsworth's son, is it Hollingsworth or his dad was with RT Alaska, and he sadly was KIA. He's trying to get me in contact with Mr. Don.
Donnie hasn't been in good health, but Donnie's good 1-0. Him and Lamar Parker, another Texan. Lamar got all shot to shit out there, but he was they were another couple of the real good recon guys.
We've heard a lot from Mr. Lamar, because 2 or 3 of the guys we know were good buddies with him growing up in Texas and through training group, and then they went to SOG, he went north, and they went to Central, and they always spoke highly. And in fact, Mr. Lamar went to Khartoum to visit for a little while to see him.
Yep.
Wow. So, and did you mention while you were when you were team leader for a bit, did you mention something about the Oklahoma Brew team that you were doing something with them?
Yeah, at the end when we were rotating the teams out, Captain Manus said he told me to take because it was Frank Mariano and I that at that time on Indigo, and Oklahoma was right next to Indigo down there at the Hooches, and he says, we need an American to do the admin on Oklahoma. So he says, Keith, you take that. And so I took them, and when we were rotating the mountain yards out right in March, they were one of the first teams to leave.
Wow. And a very historic team. They were around the Quezon area when Jim Hetrick, Melvin Hill, and some of the early SOG guys stood them up, and they were on the Recon roster for a long time. So
yeah, their brew, those brew that were on that team had been there a long time, and they were some of the older yards that were there.
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, gosh, I think they may have stood up in 66 or 67. And, yeah, they had been through their fair share. And all three of the CNCs, they were down at Khartoum. I think they ran out of Quezon for a bit, or reformed at Quezon, and then went up there to North with you guys. So,
yeah.
Wow. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about what it's like, as we're about to do the last bit of questions, what it was like closing out the team? And unfortunately, like I said when we spoke, we've heard horror stories about, the guys getting the team's weapons as much as they could because they knew it was going to be bad, and would try and get it to the villages. And could you tell us what it was like closing out a team and you being the last guy out?
Yeah, it was just heart-wrenching. The yards had given us so much of their loyalty and stuff, and they just came one day and just kind of out of the blue and said, get your team ready, bring all their gear up to the upper compound. They're going to turn in their gear, and they're leaving today. You're shitting me. So, how do you go down there and tell them, hey, guys, get all your stuff, you're done. With no warning. It's really a kick in the shorts, the way it was done. And I don't know all of the politics about it, but it really left a bad taste in my mouth. There's a picture of them. We're getting ready to go. And so they took all their gear up, and we met at E6 at the upper compound. And he said, get all your gear and spread it. They just get to keep the clothes that they got on their back. God. And stuff. And shit. Well, he checked them all in, and you could tell he didn't like it either. So they took and they put all the gear in a Connex and stuff, and he did his paperwork he had to, and he says, I'm leaving now, and I won't be back. This E6. And he pointed over to the door. He didn't lock the Connex up. And so as soon as he was 5 steeps away, I took and went through the lock away and stuff, and told the guys, you get in there, you take anything you want. You got to leave the weapons had been taken already, but take anything you want that's sitting there. You can get it. And so they loaded up on their stuff, and we loaded them up into the back of a deuce and a half, and then they rolled him out the gate. I remember standing there with tears in my eyes. Now see him go. One of the saddest days of my life.
I mean, there you essentially became a man with these guys, and they had been fighting, I'm assuming, a lot longer than you had been there, probably since you were in high school. And for them to be booted out, woke up one morning and said, get them ready to go, I can only imagine the heartbreak that you must have felt.
Yeah, it's and they wouldn't even let us go to the air base with them, over to Da Nang to get them off. And, that really hurt. But at that time, they were turning, the task force was closing up. We couldn't, actually, starting in February, we had a hard time getting ammo and stuff to go to the range to practice, because I'd like to practice at least twice a week on the shooting. And finally one day they said, you can't have any ammo. I said, why not? And he says, Colonel says no ammo. You go up and just go dry firing. I said, screw you. Then you could tell something was changing there. And there was an outfit called, I think, Special Missions Advisory Group that was supposed to be taken over. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't go good. It was really clumsy the way it was done. You know how now we know how those the Afghani veterans and stuff could feel when they did such a terrible job closing that place up. You think people would learn from it, but they don't.
Literally the exact same playbook, and they executed it to a flawless, deadly T of repeating history. I mean,
exactly.
The Vietnam is still, but with the Afghanistan incident, that's going to just reconflate, and those two are going to stay together on how the government treated the Indige and SF support Indige completely wrong.
With Afghanistan and then the Kurds in Iraq, same thing. They were the Montagnards of the Gulf War.
Of the modern era, absolutely. God almighty, I didn't even put it terms like that, but that is, geez Louise. Wow, I mean, you get to where you literally can't get ammo. That's crazy. So with this going on, I know you and some of the guys ended up, doing what you could, getting some weapons for the yards and getting them stored away to where they'd at least have a chance. It wasn't much of a chance, but they'd have weapons. What's it like for you as do you wake up one morning and they're like, all right, time to go, Keith, the plane's waiting?
Yeah, it's we got into the early part of April, and the guys started leaving. They'd come in and say the 3 or 4 go there, 3 or 4 go here, and right around the 4th of April, 3rd or 4th of April, they came in, and I left with Ron Turney, Bob Cook, Frank Mariano, and I left that day. And I think the only ones left then, as far as Americans, were Tommy Corbett and Joe Harrow, I think. I think they were, as far as I remember, the last 2 there at the compound.
There's Joe Harrow right
there. There's
there.
Harrow there.
Yeah. And wow, Mr. Tommy was one of the last ones too. If I'm not mistaken, I might be mixing him and Corbett up, but I want to say he might have been one that went on to Delta Force later.
Yeah, I think Tommy Corbett went with the unit there.
Okay. I always get Corbin and Corbett mixed up, but wow. So you, Mr. Bobby, Frank, Corbin, and Mr. Joe, and I think you said Mr. Leroy, you guys are literally the last recon men leaving the compound.
Yep.
Wow.
So the rest of them had gone a little earlier, and they'd gone down to Thank there because I had not too much time left in my enlistment, and I would have probably stayed in, but my best buddy Leroy, he'd gone out on courier duty or something, and he wasn't there, and so I, decided to come back to northern Minnesota.
Wow. So thank guys that y'all don't. I'm actually working on getting. We've had a few vets on, but I'm trying to get a special show together for a thank show. That's where they were trading the Cambodians, and it went to fake to UITG, I believe. But very interesting organization, and a lot of SOG men filled those ranks throughout the years.
They went there, and then a couple of the guys that I was in training group were there. When you get around to it, I'll give you Fred Giltzell's contact information. He spent some time there.
Oh yes, that would be outstanding. Yes, sir. Yeah, I just wrote his name down. Wow. So I just can't imagine what it's like historically there. A young 20-year-old Keith is the last man out of the gate of the historic, well, not figuratively or literally, but figuratively, one of the last men out of the gate of CCN in April of 72. I mean, that That's historic. That's crazy to even think about that you and that group are the last ones out of such a historic unit like this. But so you load up, and you said you did not want to re-up. You didn't think you wanted to continue a military career. You got out and went back.
I would have continued it, but at that time they were going to rifting a bunch of people, and you couldn't get a slot in Special Forces. And I didn't feel like going to a line outfit.
After SOG, I can't blame you, sir. That would have been like going from the major leagues to T-ball or something.
Yep.
I don't even know how to describe that. Wow. And what I think, did you end up becoming an engineer for a locomotive company?
Yeah, I was worked on a railroad, locomotive engineer. Met my wife in college after I got home and stuff. Went to actually played college hockey. I was a pretty fair hockey player.
Whoa!
I was a captain of a hockey team, and actually had before I left to go in the service, I'd had a walk-on offer from University of Minnesota, Duluth, but I walked on to the United States Army instead, and then I played after I got out of the Army. I played college hockey. Met my wife up at school there.
Where did you play and go to school at?
I went to school at a small state college in Virginia, Minnesota.
Oh, wow. Wow,
and then
Virginia, Minnesota.
And I had a full scholarship after the 2 years there for Bemidji State University, or Anchorage, Alaska. My wife was going to go to Bemidji State and finish her last 2 years, and she's a pretty little thing, so I knew she wouldn't last on the open market very long. And in fact, we're going to be married here 50 years in 2 days.
Gosh, happy anniversary. 50 years, sir. That is amazing.
They say the first 50 are the toughest, so.
Oh, Lord. That is amazing. It sounds like you made the perfect decision. It was time for you to get out of the military. It looks like life was ready for you to get out of gunslinging and settle down and get your life on. And it sounds like you took it like a duck to water.
It's been a good one. I've been lucky my whole life, bud, and that continues.
That's fantastic, sir. Well, we will get ready here and answer a few questions, and we will close it out for the day here. That one is dealing with someone else. ERDL. I've got a few if I'm not seeing. We had people join late. Hang on one sec. Oh, that is wild. Did headquarters know about the tanks beforehand, and after the operation, did they believe your AAR about the tank?
Yeah, well, they believed it because I think they knew about the tanks when it came on the radio, and I kind of broke protocol there. There was a bunch of sniveling and whining because I wanted to get out of there real fast, and they're the ones that headquarters wanted us to go on the floor of the valley, and I don't know how they figured a recon team was if they were going to pick up a piece of a tank somewhere or what, but thank God we didn't go down there.
And like there would have been a piece small enough to carry, and even if it was, it probably would have weighed 60, 70 pounds unless you got literally, a piece of metal off of it. That's crazy. Just crazy. Question I didn't ask earlier on, but this is a gun question. We know you carried the Car 15, and we've seen some of y'all's heavy photos. This is a two-parter. Did any of your teammates use the RPD, and did any of you guys ever use a long-range rifle or sniper rifle on an operation?
Well, Jessie Campbell had a sniper rifle that they had used on a previous static on the edge of Laos there, but we never took that to the field. I used the Car 15 and liked it. There's Jessie there on the left side with Chuck in the middle, and who was it?
Haven't. Gary Rowan, I think, is.
Yeah, that's Lieutenant Rowan.
So the sniper rifles were just for specialty static situations.
Yeah, I think so. You know, it was just something too cumbersome to bring along. We didn't use the RPD on some of the missions. We had there was a M60 that was been chopped down, and our 01 was a big beefy Montagnard, very muscular, and he handled it well. But that was one that was chopped down a little bit. And we did take that. We would sometimes carry that, especially for bright lights, and said he'd like to carry it. But he could handle it well. Very strong individual he was.
And I'll show a photo of him as we close, because there's a great team shot of all of y'all together. Does Mr. Keith have any funny Larry Main stories or anything to add to the commandeered half track that ended up stashed between the Indigo and Habu hooches?
Well, keeping Larry in the dark was the main object of just about everything. Because him being an enlisted man, he already knew all the tricks and stuff. And you know, he ran the company like a good NCO should. It'd be funny. Some of the guys, if they were looking for him, they'd know it, and they'd be sneaking around. It was like one of the old silent movies. You see Larry coming around one side of the hooch and them going the other way. And he was an excellent CO. He knew everything from the ground up.
Wow, outstanding.
And he had his favorite ones that he would take and irritate them. He used to say, "You son of a bitches," it says, "you're causing me a lot more trouble than you are the North Vietnamese. They'd get you out into the field."
That's one of my favorites from him. And yeah, the half track, that's classic. Hiding it between y'all's hooches like that. That was one of my favorite stories in that book. Always a big question. Were you a big Rolex guy, or did you get any Thailand gold or anything like that?
No, I didn't buy any of the gold and stuff or watches. I had a Seiko watch, one of the fancy ones, and it got stole. I'd sent it up. There had been a problem with it. I sent it to Japan to get fixed, and then on the way back, someone grabbed it through the mail.
Jeez Louise. The stuff that got stolen from y'all, either in country while y'all were wounded or back home, makes my blood boil to no end. Wait. Oh, this is an interesting question. Did any SOG members do any type of Pathfinder school or Pathfinder like training in a sense?
You know, we never saw any of the guys with their full uniforms on. I don't remember any of them with a Pathfinder patch on. I'm sure some of them probably did.
Larry was Pathfinder trained, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but you know, I didn't. No one wore much of any kind of decorations or anything. You know, the uniform of the day around Recon Company looked like a rummage sale waiting to happen. The guys were dressed in just about anything and everything, whether they're going up to training or this and that. It was sometimes you'd see some with black pajamas on, some with tiger stripes, some with field gear on, and others with regular jungle fatigues and stuff. It was there was never really until a little bit later a uniform of the day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I always enjoy seeing the photos. It's some guys looking like they just woke up and they've got their Hochi sandals on and shorts, or some guys who chopped off tiger stripe shorts and shirtless, or the 1-0 vest. And yeah, it's just a hodgepodge of SOG. What am I looking for there? Decor or fashion, shall we say?
Yep.
this is always interesting as well, asking you guys, was it hard keeping the secret of fighting the secret war for the 20-year NDA? And did you ever tell friends, family, or anyone before the secrecy clause?
I never told anyone in my family, even my twin brother. When we left, they said, keep your mouth shut, and I did. The only time I talk about it is when Bob Grado, if he and I would get together. And I never even knew about the Special Operations Association till like 1998 or 99. But, I didn't find any reason for me to tell anyone about it. I'm not that kind of person. And, if someone had asked me what I did, I'd tell them I was a cook. Then they'd just leave you alone.
Jeez, yeah, the humbleness on you guys is on a different level today. Meanwhile, we've got the current guys that are fighting on YouTube, the Special Forces guys, and you guys, it's like pulling teeth to even get you to share a halfway valorous story, because you guys are just so humble, and I respect it. But you guys sharing y'all's history like this is gonna be a huge help for future generations.
Never told my wife, my twin brother, or anyone. Even my dad. My dad died kind of young, and I would like to have told him, but I never did. And because first of all, most of them never believed some of half of the stuff, and it wasn't important for me to tell anyone else about it.
Wow, took your quiet professional label quite serious.
Yep.
And our last one is, actually I have one after this. Also, forgive me if this has been answered, but I believe Mr. Larson is a Minnesotan. I am too. We're always so proud of any small mention of our state. Where was Mr. Larson from?
I'm from a little town called Two Harbors, right up along Lake Superior, and I got a nice little live on my great-grandfather's original farm, and built a nice house there, and up on Waldo Road. So where is Waldo? It's up in Two Harbors. That's it.
That's great. And I've got a photo I was going to share, and then one last little mention of something interesting. But this is Mr. Keith. Looks like somebody's hiding back here, but this is Mr. Keith and the Indigo Indig. And unless he would have told me, I would have never noticed. But several men are injured here. We've got wraps, injured hands. We've got injured chest.
Yeah.
And
the fellow to my immediate, just to the left of me as you face the picture, that's the 01.
Right here, you mean our left?
Right there, right. That one there, that's Ya. He was a 01. He'd been in, I believe he'd been in the Mike Force before, and I think he'd fought with when the French were there. He was a very good Bunya. Just to the side of him was the Grenadier, quiet, fun-loving. He could shoot that goddamn M79 like nothing, like no one I'd ever seen. Almost like on automatic. On the other side of me is Cree, and he'd come from one of Kevin Smith's teams. He was the interpreter. And to his side is Bunya. Bunya's been shot up a little bit there. The very front, on the left side of the picture, that is Brew, his name was. And he was another good one. He was Danny. The three others did not work as much. Kun, Kra, and Pena. Pena, the one way to that, he was only 15 years old.
Jeez.
He, for some reason, the 01 took him under his wing. His Pena's parents had been killed by the VC, and was kind of the his godfather, for lack of a better term. But Pena seldom went to the field, but he was kind of one of the guys around the team room. He'd run and get stuff and that.
Almost like the team mascot, but still a team member.
Yep, exactly, and kind of get him to he was a youngster. Like I said, he was only about 15 years old.
My gosh. I mean, they all look young, but you can tell some of the guys are grizzled, even if they might be young. But these two guys, they look like kids.
Yeah.
And as we know now, they are kids.
Yep.
Or were, I should say. And to close out, I thought it would be very interesting again to talking about, just to put a nail on how dangerous things were. At one point in time, the command had gotten the crazy idea. I can't remember if you said they were trying to locate an area or a group of NVA, but they were going to put you or your team, Mr. Eldon, and I think maybe Mr. Bob in, until Mr. Eldon said, no, this is suicide. We're not doing this.
Yeah, when SMAG took over, for some reason or other, they had the wild ass idea of, they wanted to put 3 teams on the floor of the valley at the same time and separated. He says their thinking was they could then fight towards each other and have a bigger footprint to fight stuff off. And we listened to the stuff for a little while. Bob Sinton was looking for another team member to go with him, and I volunteered, but they said it was going to be, they expected it would be about 50% casualties. But I went and I said, I'm going with Bob Sinton. You got a lot better chances than anything. But Eldon said, we can insert and get down there. And says, you're never going to get us out. He says they're going to have so many helicopters laying in there. And whoever was running the SMAG finally relented, and they canceled that. But we were spooling up for that and getting ready. And that was like in February or early March.
I mean, the later years, I see some of the missions and some of the places, and unfortunately, like RT Kansas and some other groups, RT Intruder, some of the missions that they were put in were just bad and should have never happened, unfortunately, and they did, and men paid their lives, and we're sure as heck glad you made it out and were able to come home and make a happy family, marry your sweetheart, go to college and build a successful career, and stay here and be open to sharing your story with us, because it sure as heck means a lot to all of us that appreciate y'all's history.
It was good. The biggest highlight for my twin brother, he was in the 82nd, and when Nick got rotated out of Vietnam, he came into, I don't know if it was Raleigh Airport or Fayetteville Airport. My twin brother was heading home, and he walked in the bathroom there, and there's my twin brother sitting there, and Nick gives him a big kiss, and he says, "You sweet son of a bitch." And what happened? They took, and you hear in the 82nd they busted you in rank, and my brother Ken's swatting him away. Get away from me. So if you ever get a chance to talk to Nick, he says he's a good kisser.
I was halfway expecting when he told me. I was, which would have made it even better. I was thinking that Nick went and put his tongue in his ear, and I could only imagine at the urinal and thinking it's a SOG, the guy thinking you're a SOG vet, and you getting a tongue in the ear from Nick.
Yeah, it was really something, because my twin brother Kenny had written me a letter. He says, "Do you know a Nick Brockhausen?" And usually the only time someone asks that, and your immediate answer is, "Yes, Your Honor."
Boy, do I. Man, we cannot appreciate this. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and I am just honored you graced us with 2 hours. 2 hours and 15 minutes of your time this morning to come and share with us. It means a lot. And everybody's saying thank you and passing on their thank yous and other comments about how awesome you are. But we're wrapping up. Is there anything you'd like to say before we shut down and close out for the day?
No, it's been enjoyable, and thank you, Bud, for doing this. It's It plays a long way. Yeah, most of us guys don't want much acknowledgement or anything, but it's truly been enjoyable.
I always appreciate when guys actually enjoy themselves a little bit, because it can be tedious. I know you guys don't like talking about yourself, but it can be fun at times, and I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, because we sure as heck enjoyed ourselves.
Okay,
So,
bud, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. We're going to shut her down, and everybody keep an eye out on upcoming shows. I'll pass along hellos to Mr. Keith if y'all would like to say hello, and y'all have a great day. Mr. Keith, you have a great day as well.